Okay, welcome to this introductory video to 3DSMax. In this video we're going to be talking a bit about the UI, what each panel does. We're going to be talking about viewport control, and we're going to look at creating a simple room, lighting it, materialing it, and then rendering it. Okay, the first thing to do is talk a bit about the UI. Now you see I'm using a light UI here rather than the dark one. To load that, you just go to Customize, Load Custom UI Scheme. Select this bar at the top and go to UI, and then select AME Light. You just load that. Okay, so you see you've got this panel on the right. This is your Create panel. This is where you can create and edit anything in 3ds Max, from geometry to lights to cameras, etc. You'll see you've got a bar along the top here, and this gives you all your access to all your different kind of modes and tools. So you see you've got move, rotate, scale, you've got undo and redo and save, and you've got other commands like mirror, and you can load your materials from here as well. And obviously there's lots of other buttons, and we'll be using those at a later date. You see down here you've got a little slider. This is for animation, so you can create kind of animation frames. And then down here on the right you've got viewport controls, so things like zoom, extents, and rotate around objects. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is just create some standard objects. So you'll see if you click the drop down here you have access to other kind of basic objects to start with as well, but we'll just stick with the standard ones for now. So select box, and then in your viewport just click the left mouse button, hold it down and drag, and then let go, and you can raise the box up and down, and then just left click again to create. To zoom out your viewport, just roll the rollable. So just left click, hold, and drag to create a sphere. With a cylinder, left click and hold to get your radius, let go, and then raise up, and then just left click to create. Okay, so just to talk a little bit about the viewports. Basically, each viewport is a camera that looks into this big kind of empty 3D space that you have. So you can see you've got perspective, front, top, and left. To actually navigate around your viewports, it's pretty much just the mouse and the Alt key are all you need to know. So if you hold in the rollable, you can see I can track around. If you roll the rollable up and down, you can zoom in and out. If you hold Alt and hold the rollable, you can rotate around. So just take a few seconds to get used to these controls, and you can do the same on your orthographic views. You can zoom in and out, and you can move around by just holding the rollable or rolling the rollable. Okay, other useful viewport controls are F3 and F4. If you press F3, you'll see that switches between smooth and wireframe, and if you press F4 while in smooth mode, you'll see you go to smooth and wireframe. You can also change any viewport to be any camera you want. You can do that by either right clicking and just picking the type of view you want. So perspective, you can have another perspective view. Also, viewport shortcuts are pretty much just a letter on the keyboard. So T is top, for instance, and L is left. Okay, so that's basic viewport navigation. Okay, so what about object manipulation? So as you know, you've got move, rotate, and scale up here, and you can see we're currently in move mode because that's highlighted in yellow. So if I just select by left clicking on one of the objects, you'll see I have this pivot icon here with X, Y, and Z. Now the reason why it has X, Y, and Z is because that's how you can define a point in a 3D space with an X coordinate, a Y coordinate and a Z coordinate. So the way this works is the area that's highlighted in yellow is the kind of direction you can go in. So you can see if I highlight the X here, then left click and drag, you can see I can move it around like so. Same with Y and the same with Z. If I select one of the squares in the middle, I can move along two of the different axes. Like so. Now you tend to find you do a lot of kind of positioning of your objects in your orthographic views, as you can be far more kind of precise with exactly where you want it to go. Okay, so select rotate mode, and you can see again it works along three axes. So if I select one of the axes, I can rotate along there, same with there, and same with that one. A useful thing about rotate is to use angle snap. So if I turn angle snap on, it will then snap to 5 degrees, so you can keep precision. Then if you select scale, you'll see again very similar. You can go along two axes or along one. Also in scale mode, if you go directly in the center, you can see all three are highlighted and you can do a uniform scale. You can also input details by right clicking on each, and you can transform type in if you want to do it 100% accurately. So for instance, if I wanted to scale this by 2 times, I give it 200%. Okay, so next let's add in some different types of objects. So just come over to your create panel, select the drop down, let's select extended primitives, and just pick a couple of these to make in your scene. Now a good way to access move, rotate, scale rather than using these three is to either right click and you can select move, rotate and scale from the menu here, or if you use W, E and R, that also switches between the three. So I'll just select scale mode, let's bring that down a bit. If you just go back to standard primitives and select plane, let's make sure you've got some kind of floor object. And just position everything so it's just sitting above the floor. One thing, if you hold down left mouse button, you can do a group select, so you can just select multiple objects. You can also do that by holding control, and you can select multiple objects like that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is just some basic materials. So your material editor you can access up here, or it's the M key as the shortcut. Okay, so this is your material editor. So in here you can just create any kind of material to apply to these objects. As you can see, they're just kind of basic colours at the moment. So if we want to give them properties like make them look like they're made of brick or wood or anything like that, then to do that we need to apply an actual material to the objects. So a good place to start is just by making a standard material. So if you right click on the view area here and go to materials, standard, this is just a kind of basic material that we can use for today. So if you double click on the diffuse tab here, so you'll see here you've got a list of different options, and each of these is a different kind of effect we can give to our material. So probably the first one, the most important one, is the diffuse. So that's the overall colour of this object. So if you just come over to your settings on the right, you'll see a little colour tab next to diffuse. If you just pick a different colour, you'll see it will go with a different colour. Select the cylinder in your viewport and just right click on the thing, on the name of the material, and go to assign material to selection. You can see it appear in the viewport like that. Okay, so what if you want to have something with a lot more detail than this? Say brick. You can see you've got this little tab next to it here. In fact, let's do it over here. If you just click and left click and drag, it gives you all the different kind of options you can apply as colour. Now we're just going to pick bitmap because you're going to use a texture. So if we select bitmap and then browse to the textures that are on Moodle, and we'll just select brick and go to open. And you'll see now that the material has a brick texture on it. So the reason we can't see it in there because it's not visible in the viewport. So if you just right click and go show hardware map in viewport, we'll do show standard map in viewport, and you can see now that we have some bricks appearing on this object. Okay, so that's the colour sorted out. The other options we have, if we just work down the list, we've got specular colour, specular level and glossiness. Now if you come over to the right, you'll see we've got those three settings here. So if we try increasing the specular level, you'll see it refers to the amount of reflectance the material has. So the higher up you go, the more metal it goes. And if you increase the glossiness, you'll see that defines the fall off of it. Okay, we can also see that we've got a white highlight on here at the moment. And that colour here is defined by specular colour, or this colour tab here. So you can see we can give it more suitable colour and get it looking a bit kind of brick-like. Okay, so if we just select the box here, you notice here we're in the create tab at the moment, but what if we actually want to edit an object? Well, if you come over to modify, this is where we can do that. So any object you select, you can edit it from this menu. So we come over to the box settings and let's just tweak this up a little bit. Then we'll come back to the material editor and again right click and assign material to selection. Now you see, what if we want to have this wall as having a lot more bricks than the mapping is currently showing? Well, we can control that reasonably easily on simple objects by using a modifier. And you see here we've got a modifier list. If you click that, these are all the different modifiers you can assign to objects. Now I know it seems like there's a hell of a lot there, but quite a lot of them are kind of redundant now. They just don't want to delete anything out of the software. So the one we're going to apply is Uvw Map, and this is how we can actually map the textures as we want. Now obviously this is a box shape, so what you want to do is go through the list of different mappings and pick the most similar to the object you're working on. So obviously this will be a box, and you'll see now I can actually tweak the mapping of the object to get it so that it looks like it's a much kind of bigger wall. Okay, so let's make a new material and have a look at some of the other controls. So we come to your material editor, right click on materials and go to standard. Double click on that one to bring up the options. So this time select the torus, right click and assign material to selection, and remember to show the standard map in viewport as well. Now on this one, let's just give it some nice shine. Then now one of the other tools we can also use is opacity. And this applies to translucency of an object. So if I just bring this down, you'll see the object becomes translucent. Okay, so let's actually render an image now of this. To render an image, if you press F10, that'll bring up the render menu. You can also get to that by going to rendering, render setup. And you'll see it's got a bunch of options in it, but for now the default settings will work fine. You can see we've got width and height here, so if we just hit render, you'll see it'll render an image based on what's currently in our viewport. Now something we're lacking at the moment is any kind of light, so let's drop a light into the scene. So if you just come over to your Create tab over here and just select the Lights button and make sure you're in Standard. Then select Target Spot and let's just drag that down, so there. Okay, so check where your light is positioned. Let's just get it so it's around here. And then we'll go back to our render settings with F10 and hit render. You see the objects are now starting to get a bit of light, but there's no shadow. So to get shadows into the scene, just select the light, go to the Modify tab, tick on shadows, and we'll use Ray Trace shadows. You'll see now we've got some light in the scene. I'll just select the plane and go to Modify and increase the size of it a bit. I can just change the base colour of it as well, like that. Now we're going to make a couple more materials, one for each of these objects. So again, come to your material editor, right click, Material Standard, and again just click off the diffuse, select bitmap, and let's select grass. Then we'll select the ground plane, right click, assign material to selection, and make sure you click show standard map in viewport, or right click and get to it from there. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at some other map settings. We've been through specular. In fact, let's just quickly set that for our grass here. We'll have very low glossiness but quite high specular level, and we'll just drop in kind of yellowy green. Okay, so the next one we're going to look at then is the bump. So if we just click on the bump tab and drag out, and again select bitmap, and we'll use grass bump here. So you can see it's a black and white image. Now bump basically refers to a material effect where you can give the impression that the surface is kind of really bumpy and has a lot of fine detail. Games and film both do it, but it's done just to save on memory, because drawing textures with a lot of detail is a lot easier than drawing lots of geometry, and obviously you need hundreds of thousands of polygons in order to create a kind of bumpy surface. Okay, so if we just select grass bump, and you can see it's black and white, and the reason it's black and white is because the shaders are going to interpret that all the white bits are sticking up and all the black bits are indented. So we just hit open on that. And if you have a look at the actual material, you can already see the effect is there. If we come over to our material settings, this is where we can define the strength, so we can actually increase the strength if need be. Okay, so let's just render now. Again, press F10 and just hit render. You can see we've got a very bumpy surface. So let's try turning that down, maybe to say 50. You can also see it's way out of scale in relation to the rest of the objects in the scene. So let's select the plane, go to modify, and then apply a Uvw mapping modifier to it. and we'll set the tiling down here, say 3 and 3, and that means the image will tile 3 times along and 3 times vertically here. Let's try rendering that. And you can see that's looking a lot better. Okay, so let's scroll up to our brick material and we'll apply a bump to that as well. So we'll select brick bump. And again we can see it applied to here. If we double click on the material, we can again go down to maps and increase the amount of bump. And we can see the bump now having an effect on the brick. Okay, so we've covered all the basic kind of shaders in here. We know about the diffuse being the colour, specular colour being the colour of the reflectivity, specular level being the amount of reflectivity, and the glossiness defines the fall off. We've seen opacity defines the translucency of an object. So even now you can turn the opacity down on that. And we've seen the bump sets the bumpiness of the surface. Okay, so we'll just look at the last ones then, which are reflection and refraction. So let's go back to our translucent material on our torus here. And just in reflection, we'll drop in a ray trace. So that should now make this material reflect the environment. You can see now we've got a nice reflection on there of the floor here and of the surrounding kind of brick. So if you wanted to, you could apply one of those, a ray trace, into the reflection of the brick. Then you get a highly reflective brick surface. Just a nice option there for cleaning up your material editor. If you just do a left click drag and press layout children, it'll clean everything up for you.